Next up, we've got a brand going to talk about a very similar experience. And after that, we've got a panel on fans themselves. So today really is all about the influencers and the influenced. Next up, we got Stuart from SK2. His case study is all about finding a win-win. What type of relationship with a creator is right for my brand? It's great to think about all these amazing influencers, but are you going to get the right one? And also, are they going to want to work with you? That's a very key point. We do a lot of deals between creators and brands. A lot of the time, the creators said, nah, I don't like that brand, I'm sorry. They want to stay authentic, like that panel we're talking about. So, Stuart is going to tell us what platforms they've used and, crucially, how do they measure their ROI in influencer marketing. So I think it's the first time he's ever been at All That Matters. Hopefully not the last. From SK2, please go crazy for Stuart LaBrooy. Crazy?
It really is a miracle worker in my eyes.
This has become a staple of mine.
I also love to use the facial treatment essence.
我觉得神仙水给我最大的改变就是让我那个痘痘不再长了，而且也没有痘印，到现在这个脸部都还非常光洁。
但是用完以后，我会觉得皮肤特别的滑，前所未有的。就是那个时候，我会觉得，哎呀，毛孔怎么那么大啊？肌肤各种症状啊。用了神仙水一段时间后，我会发现，哦，皮肤一切都变得很好。然后会有人告诉我，哎，你怎么那么白呀？I've been using this product for half a year now, and I've been using it every single day, and I feel like my skin has never looked or felt softer.
그런데 무엇보다 좋은 거는 되게 지쳤을 때 피부가 조금 지친다 싶을 때 쓰면은 확실히 생기 돋고 다른 제품을 바꿀 때도 좀 망설여지는 그런 게 있더라고요. 끊을 수 없는 그런 피테라에.
I really love products that are safe and natural. So I've been using the facial treatment essence, which has more than 90% of pitera. It makes the skin glowy and stimulates the natural renewal process of the skin's outer layer for youthful skin.
I think it's really moisturizing and it really plumps up my skin. So I think that when the skin is nice and plump, it automatically looks whiter and brighter, and that's what I love about it.
今までスキンケア用品使って劇的な変化ってなかなか感じにくかったんですよね。もともとそんなに肌トラブルもなかったので違いが分からなかったんだけど、ものすごい違いを感じるんですよ、これを使って。だから本来持つ自分の肌の力を底上げしてくれてバランスを整えてくれるような力がある化粧水だと思います。
This has just done so much good for my skin. I feel a lot of hydration and just the health of my skin being restored back, especially along the lines of my eye area as well as around my nose and mouth.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Stuart, and I'll be talking to you today about partnerships. I congratulate everyone who's made it after the VIP nut party last night, so good work. And today I'm going to talk to you, but first a little bit of background about that video. What you saw there was some of the world's top beauty bloggers, and 100% of that content was non-sponsored. So we didn't pay them anything for that content. And that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. What I'm going to start with, though, is a bit of a story about how we got there. And it actually starts with an 80s cartoon called Dino Riders. I was addicted to this show when I was growing up. It had everything a 10-year-old boy would need. It had dinosaurs, which is a good start. It had laser guns, missile launchers, an epic battle of good against evil. And I was hooked. When I was I would wake up on Saturdays at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would tiptoe down, because my parents were still asleep and got really mad with me when I woke them up, make myself a bowl of cereal, sit about 2 inches from the screen, turn it on and tune into this whole thing, and there's nothing I wanted more than my own pet stegosaurus with a missile launcher. Fast forward a couple of years later, and I was studying marketing, and one of the case studies that we were doing was on a company called Tyco Toys. And Tyco had a really interesting story, and I realized when I was reading about it that my favorite cartoon ended up being a 30-minute ad every week. Tyco's Toys had actually created the cartoon Dino Riders, and they had done it mainly to sell $6 plastic toys with auto-walking action and missile launchers. This was my reaction. However, the more that I thought about it, the more that I realized it wasn't that big of a deal, and I kind of was pretty happy at the end of it. And that's because the way Dino Riders was created ended up being a collaboration between the vice president of Tyco and also a couple of writers who had DC comic background and a producer for NBC and Marvel. It was a fantastic show, and they had embraced a lot of the comments and inputs that they had received from their creative partners to help build this show and make a great piece of content. I ended up being fully entertained. I loved it. And so I didn't feel cheated that I had experienced advertising, because the advertising itself was entertainment. It was a service that they were providing me. And yeah, maybe it helped them sell a lot of toys. In fact, Tyco was basically the first company to kick off the whole idea of licensed or entertainment driving product sales with this whole cartoon, and had blown their entire Christmas budget in terms of media to reinvest in towards making this show. So they didn't air any ads for Christmas, and instead took all that money and put it into making this show. And I ended up feeling more rewarded, I think, than if I had just seen Christmas ads, which I wouldn't have paid attention to. It made me want to buy it, but I didn't feel cheated because you gave me a really great experience in exchange. Fast forward a couple of years later, and Procter & Gamble, the company that I work for, thought I'd be an excellent fit for SK-II for some reason. For those of you that don't know anything about SK-II, it's the #1 prestige skincare brand in Asia. It recently joined the $1 billion club for Procter & Gamble, so it's a pretty big brand. SK-II prestige skincare, not something I'm a particularly big expert in, so I had a lot of learning to do. And one of the things that we realized was, for prestige skincare, skincare in general, and beauty, and then for those of you working in the industry, I don't need to explain this, bloggers and vloggers were a huge influencer, driving 65% of the purchases that have happened in the beauty category in the last 6 months. Their recommendations really drove a huge amount of importance. So they were one of the first places that I started. And there were basically two models that SK-II was using to engage with bloggers. And I'm going to nickname them Pay and Pray. With Pray, what we basically did was we invited them down to an SK-II event. We had the event happen, and we hoped that they'd write about us. Usually what we got in response to that approach was a lot of selfies, as well as maybe a couple of lines about the product if it happened to be new. The Pay model was a little bit more directive. We could brief the blogger. We'd go and engage her and say, this is what we want you to say. This is how we want you to say it. But we ended up facing a bit of a dilemma there, because one of the problems that started cropping up when we were pursuing this model is how you disclose, or whether you disclose, that the content was sponsored. And you kind of had two choices there. You could go, let's declare that it's sponsored. But the problem with that approach was that you'd end up with consumers kind of just turning off in terms of engaging you, because they knew what they were watching was an ad. And even if the blogger really believed what she was saying, you would not see that translate into endorsement. You just say, of course they've been paid off, I'm not interested. The second thing that would happen was if you decided to maybe not completely reveal that you were sponsored. And then you ran into this whole game of faking authenticity with the consumer. You were trying to hide the fact that money changed hands when it actually did. And this created some issues, and it's becoming a huge issue in the industry, both for bloggers. Bloggers are starting to get super concerned about this, and consumers are beginning to start expressing a major displeasure with when they feel cheated. And I'll give you a couple of sense points. One of my most favorite examples, actually, is something recent with the Apple iPhone 6. So as you know, the incomparable Joan Rivers, a force in the industry, posted a review for the Apple iPhone 6. There was only one problem. She unfortunately passed away September 4th, 2014, and posted her iPhone review on the 19th, 15 days later. This was a huge issue for iPhone. All of the celebrity reviews they had kind of received were thrown into suspect and not necessarily perceived as genuine. Major, major concern and ER disaster for them. Probably some stern words were exchanged hands. And the truth is that everyone feels deceived. I honestly think that 2 out of 3 is a bit of a bogus statistic, because if you discover that you've been consuming sponsored content without realizing it, you feel cheated. And you get angry at two people, actually. You get angry at the brand, and you also become angry at the blogger who was talking about it. And so bloggers themselves are also starting to get really concerned, since their audience base is their source of income. So we had a whole dilemma of how do we get beyond feeling like a used car salesman when we work with bloggers? How do we start communicating authentically and creating more genuine content? This was a huge brand priority for SK2 because one of our core values is authenticity. But I think the other thing is, as we've been talking about for the last couple of days at this panel, with the panel discussions and with everything else, we know that it's incredibly important for authentic endorsement to come out. Otherwise, you're just not getting that kind of persuasive content through. And so we started going on and doing our homework on how bloggers work and what's going on in their lives. And we realized some really interesting facts and observations. One of them is the way we were thinking about bloggers was a little bit wrong. We've always been approaching as an industry bloggers as being influencers. But the truth is 90% of them are sourcing their income from advertising that's hosted on their channel. This is in addition to sponsorships. And so they actually work a lot like a media channel where they're concerned about meaningful content and meaningful coverage and making sure that they're growing their audience base because that's a source of income for them. The second thing that's happening is they're beginning to invest as brands and beginning to act like brands, pursuing multiple streams of income and exploring how their brand can extend beyond what they're doing right now. They're making music CDs, they're getting onto TV statements, they're starting their own clothing lines. They're taking the plunge into events and engaging industry events of their own. They're beginning to launch their own video networks, as we heard yesterday, their own cosmetic lines. They're starring in commercials as actresses and actors would. And they're beginning to also become picked up as editors and writers. They're writing best-selling books, and they're making bathroom product lines. So what we realized was bloggers really aren't just influencers for us and for the industry at large. They're also media channels, and they're also brands. And this was a really exciting learning for us because what it meant was that there are multiple ways we can talk and engage with this creator that would be of value to them other than just throwing cash at them. There were ways we could reward them and work with them and collaborate with them that went beyond a paid brief. We also learned a little bit from YouTube themselves. So one of the facts that YouTube has started launching out is a real investment into their individual creators, which they're calling the Beacon program. And how they're taking that forward is in publicizing and helping give creators publicity. They let them extend their brand into other spaces. These are some billboards that have been going really huge in America. They're also doing a lot of pre-roll advertising for their creators. They've created a huge amount of goodwill in the creator community and helped them succeed in what the projects they're working on. And that's given them the ability to then engage with them and get their support for YouTube-oriented campaigns, which they want to do because it aligns with their core values and their core objectives. And they also want to do partially out of gratitude because they are feeling YouTube's support and assistance and investment in what they want to do. All of these programs that I'm showing you here, YouTube was able to generate with some of the world's top YouTube influencers without paying them anything. And so this was a huge enlightenment, and it was kind of what led us to create what we're calling the SK2 Beauty Circle. And how we did it was we took the incredibly novel approach of finding influencers we wanted to work to and calling them on Skype. No media. We didn't work through an agency. We didn't brief them. We just set up a Skype call and introduced ourselves. And in that conversation, we made a couple of promises. One of the things that we said was, we're first interested in talking about a relationship with you. And we talked a little bit about the beauty circle. And the second thing we said was, these are the rules. We're never going to tell you what you can and can't say. We're never going to ask you to take something down. We're never going to ask you to talk about a product in a particular way. It's completely up to you. If you don't like a product, you don't have to talk about it. If you like a product for a different reason than our advertising message, go nuts. The second thing that we said was we were interested in having a partnership-oriented discussion, not a sponsorship-oriented discussion. And how we expressed that was we wanted to first understand their objectives as a creator. And this was a fascinating journey for us because what started coming out was each creator has their own point of view as to the content that they want to make. Each of them has their own perspective as to how they want to grow. Some of them don't have a business-oriented goal and just want to work with their fans and understand how to please their fans more. Some of them do have a growth goal and are really interested in pursuing it. Getting to know what they wanted to do was incredibly helpful because it let us sort of set up a way of working with them that aligned to their core values and desires. And what the Beauty Circle eventually became was a really small team that sat between our brand teams who were giving us the briefs of the content and influencer work that they wanted to do, and the creators themselves. And we'd work to them on joint business plans, basically, that helped get SK2 what they needed, and also helped bloggers achieve what they wanted to do. And there were a number of different tools that you can do. I mean, the standard ones that we always do, like getting them into events and products, are all also there. But where it started being really interesting for us is we started getting these new ideas come out. A couple that I'll talk about was we were using our Google Analytics as well as our consumer insights coming out of our own research to actually share with creators to help them identify content territories that they should explore. And this was beyond the brand. This was sort of getting into the fact that, for instance, in Korea, there's an interview season, and because in Korea your CVs are submitted with your photo in it, it's a great opportunity to talk about beauty and getting the look that's right for the interviews. That season picks and Google search spikes at around April, so making content for around April that'll suit your consumers' needs will cause you to spike up, get you some new subscribers. And by the way, here's some beauty products that you can use to talk about it when you're talking about getting the look, but we don't expect it to just be about skincare. You need to talk about hair, you need to talk about what to wear, you need to get into all of that. Go have fun. The second thing we started doing was we turned around the way we were thinking about events. Previously, we had always looked at events being super fancy affairs that impress people about the brand, that drive a lot of brand equity. What we're now looking at events for is we'll tell the creators that we want to get everyone together, and we'll start working out what kind of content we want to do. We might pick a location first, like Seoul, and fly everyone in. And when we're doing that, the conversation would be, well, what kind of content do you guys want to make together, apart, in Seoul, to do with Korea? How do we start packaging this up so we're always shooting content? Because there's nothing a creator likes more than getting something out of her trips in terms of content that she can post. And because we kept the doors open in terms of how we planned that, we ended up getting an incredible amount of ideas that we never would have seen before, incredible new content combinations we hadn't thought of ourselves. And the creators were motivated to go make this stuff so that, you know, the conversation about money never came up. This was content that was valuable for them as much as it was valuable for us. I'll just talk a little bit about the results. The program's about a year old now. 129 million impressions in our last January event where we brought everyone together. That's 3 days, 129 million. We're pretty proud of that. And for the first 6 months of the program, I'm still waiting for the full year report, we generated over 1 billion impressions in total. And I'll just stop also on the fact that this was from 18 creators. A lot of the time when we're a brand, we're used to talking huge numbers, and 18 can seem a little small, especially when you're talking about a global coverage. But the truth is, if you find the right partners, especially in the world of today, you can get an incredible amount of scale from a small amount of people, as long as you're picking the right people who collaborate with you and generate a huge amount of support. Again, all of this 100% non-sponsored. All of the investment we did as a brand was entirely in building the relationship and helping these creators make content. We did not let them profit from anything that they would be able to do. And that let our creators also feel incredibly comfortable about talking about SK2 in whatever way they felt, because they didn't have to declare sponsorship from an FTC regulation standpoint or even from an ethical standpoint. And it was fantastic for us because they were so proud of that content, they were happy to put it on their channels and really delighted when we would take it and use it on ours. I think the other thing that surprised us with this whole approach was we also started seeing that the content itself became incredibly different and valuable versus what we saw. The fact that it wasn't paid for, the fact that there was no brief changing hands, meant everything that a blogger said about our product was 100% authentic. It was just genuine and honest. And that meant what we were getting back was way more powerful than the previous stuff that we had paid for. The second thing that we got out of it was these incredibly new content ideas, because we were working with the creator with no fixed agenda in mind. We started getting all of these new angles into conversations we wanted to play in, all of these new ways to talk about our products. And that translated for us into these really incredible stories. So what you're seeing here is something that happened in the January event. This is a Korean blogger, Dami Yoon, who's one of our top Naver bloggers. And she's actually on this is a channel post that happened on one of our Japanese bloggers, who ended up having this conversation with her in kind of broken Japanese and Korean as needed, where they were talking about our products. Now, this all happened outside of an event. They showed up to an SK2 event and all clustered around the table and basically started just sharing advice. We had never thought about the idea that bringing all of these different cultures together, all of these different creators from around the world together, would result in this cross-collaborative content. And it's become explosive for us as well as creators, because creators are now starting to, the creators' audiences get delighted when they see other bloggers come into the story and other bloggers being friends. It educates new bloggers about other people that I can follow, other people that I can consume content from. And the creators get this huge authentic boost. We're delighted about it because we get to communicate ourselves as a massively appealing brand in all of these different countries. It's incredibly invaluable content and something that sort of happened spontaneously when we started bringing these creators together in that context. The second thing that sort of happened was we started seeing all of this content become incredibly powerful and useful for us to host on our own platforms. We were looking for all these different angles. We didn't know how we could come up with it. And all of a sudden, we got all this great editorial content that we could feature on YouTube, we could put on our websites. They were from different countries, so we could easily just give them a relevant blogger as we got out, to the point where we're now starting to explore taking their reviews and putting pre-roll behind it with no brand sponsorship whatsoever. It's simply such a great review that we'll put it up as a skippable and just get it out to more of our audience so they can learn about some of the top creators we like, as well as find out a little bit more maybe about a product that they're interested in. And so it's been fantastic for us from a content standpoint. A lot of the time we talk about endorsement and paying for endorsement in terms of how many impressions we get out of it. One thing that we sometimes forget is this is also incredibly valuable content from a, hey, now we have a great video about our product that we can use, that otherwise we would have to shoot. So there's a value in getting all this content. And part of the Beauty Circle relationship was we're able to take and reuse and share all of this content on our platforms in perpetuity, no usage fees required. Creators are okay with that because we're promoting them alongside promoting our products when we use their content. To give you a sense of how we put this together, this is a quick video that I'll play. And in it, what we've used is entirely content from creators' channels. It's sitting on our SK2 website for What's New, translated, subtitled in various languages, depending on which site you go to. This is the English version.
Summers are really hot and dry, and I have combination skin type. It just becomes super oily.
You perspire a lot more, so your skin's a lot more oily.
Some shine in the T-zone.
The pores become larger.
Very light BB cream, facial mask sheets every single night.
I tend to use a moisturizer that is quite light.
Wear sunscreen, powder whatever foundation I'm wearing to prevent shine.
Switch from your normal moisturizer to a lighter moisturizer just so it doesn't clog my pores.
Avoid the dark spots, make your makeup look translucent. I will mix the sunblock UV with the BB cream to make the skin so soft, natural glow.
The facial treatment essence apply lightly on the face during daytime.
With SK2, I found that the Deep Surge moisturizer was really light and it wasn't oily on my face. That's like my go-to moisturizer now.
The Day Surge UV, and that has an SPF of 30, so it gives you about 5 hours of sun protection. That's also the best anti-aging method for prevention. Hydrate your skin even when it's hot in the summer.
SK2 Stem Power Essence is really work for me. Use beside the nose, so the forehead, the oil problem is controlled.
So again, non-sponsored content. Total cost to actually make that video was the editing cost of bringing all the footage together. And that was it. Usage was free. The second thing I'll probably talk about is, again, another advantage of creators and having this collaborative relationship that we didn't realize was the power of their relationship with fans. And we've started using them in live events, mainly because they've started really bringing an audience and a passion and an authenticity to how we typically do even our consumer-facing programs. And I'll just kind of, to close it up, I'll just share a little bit of a story. We had one of our creators here from the Los Angeles, and she's an American Korean, huge following in Korea as well as the US. And she said, hey, I just want to do a meetup. This is my first time in Singapore. Can you set something up for us? And we didn't really have anything planned, but we wanted to give her as much as we could. So we found a coffee shop down in Buena Vista. We were near our technical center. So there's a little coffee shop in Buena Vista. Those of you who aren't from Singapore, it's about 45 minutes from the center of town. It was a Wednesday afternoon at 2. And we said, fine, let's do it quickly at 5 or something. So you got about a 3 hours notice. Go ahead and tweet, and we'll go and engage and then take you to dinner afterwards. And I'll just play a video that was on Jen's channel as to what happened after that.
Bye.
back there in the white, quietly freaking out. There are 3,000 people showed up to this event. And what ended up happening later was security actually got called and we had to shut down this event because it was just way beyond what we expected. But the thing that I noticed is seeing Jen interact with all her fans, seeing that relationship that she's created, started reminding me of how I felt when I was a 10-year-old tuning into Dino Riders. It was the same idea of, I'm doing this because I want to, these recommendations are because I'm happy to get it, I'm feeling entertained, I'm getting a beneficial service. And because SK2 is part of that conversation now, we're also welcomed into the audience that's engaging. And the influencers are happy to work with us. Everyone is benefiting from the collaboration that we're doing. And that insight made me start wondering, in addition to creators, which have now become, by the way, Beauty Circle has become something now we're getting approached by bloggers to join, and our creators are recommending other bloggers that we should talk to bring in. But it also made me start wondering, can this be brought into the way we work with celebrities for SK2? Can we start understanding their objectives as brands now and what they want to do? Could it transform the relationships that we have with our customers, with our media partners, with the way we work with NGOs? Could it influence how we also take forward the work that we do with our production teams and agencies? Could we reach out to directors, understand what they're trying to tell stories around, and find out ways we could be part of that conversation? Photographers, creators, fashion designers, artists, dancers, the kind of people that we work with very frequently to make communication, but very rarely have a conversation about in terms of mutual win-win goals. And that's the idea, win-win. I've got a couple of minutes left. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take some. Do you want to just shout?
I'll yell out, is that all right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Have you had a situation where you gave product to a creator and they bagged it? They went online and made a movie and said, I hate this product, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And what was the result of that?
I haven't had that situation, and what's very interesting about the way creators work is they know that their audience is only interested in products that are good. No one does a search for the worst product in skincare. So it's not valuable content for them to bag it. I think I did make a conscious choice when we were approaching bloggers to look for people who had a positive message, who were incredibly authentic, who made good content, and really cared about their audience though. So I think when you filter, when you're looking for who you want to work with, it's a partnership and you don't partner with just anyone. So find a great partner that can really get you and will want to work with you. Obviously we loved SK2 users existing and we loved working with, they were a priority for me too. But we did go after new people who had never heard about us before. But they're professionals and they were really, and they only want to make content about things people love and the things that they love. So it never actually happened. Any other questions? ROI. Okay, it's interesting how we've started having conversations with ROI. I think have happened in every single session, and I'll give you my personal take and also how I manage management. My personal take is it's hard to look at this stuff and say this is not valuable to me as a brand. So one of the things that constantly comes up is we've stopped questioning, say, the ROI of a television ad as something we should do. It's become something that we know works, and so we keep doing it. And I think when you have a qualitative discussion with management about, you know, this is what I'm getting out of it, do you think we should keep doing this? Most of the time, the conversation is yes. And I think the way we talk about metrics for these kind of projects have to start moving into a much clearer idea of what you're looking to get out. So the conversations I usually have is, this positive message has gone out to 1 billion people. These products, my facial treatment essence is a 35-year-old product that has not changed its formulation. And we're getting all of this coverage from completely new influencers who are talking to a younger audience. Is that valuable? And the trick that I've also started doing is, how much would it cost to put media behind this and get this many impressions? How much would it cost to produce this content and generate it on our own if we had to shoot something? And then how does that weigh up against the investments that I've made into the relationship and the fact that I constantly am now getting a flow of content for free? That's usually helped with these kind of conversations. And I will say it started with a very small pilot test that we did 12 months ago with a small group of people at 18. We're now looking at, I think we're looking at more than tripling it in the next year. So start small, get something that creates a result, and then start having this qualitative question of, is this valuable? And I think that'll help. And maybe equivalence it to what we would have done to get the same kind of outcome ourselves as a brand. And would that content have been as persuasive? Anything else? All right, thanks a lot.